Cuyamaca Peak in Julian, California is the second highest point in San Diego County, sitting at 6,512 feet. It's located directly across the street from its popular neighbor Stonewall Peak, which we saw in the video last week. If you haven't seen that one yet, click in the upper corner right now to watch that. If Stonewall Peak wasn't challenging enough for you, this one should have you covered. This trail is rated as moderate. It has an overall distance of 7.7 miles with 1,850 feet of elevation gain. Speaking of elevation, the impressive height of this hike and mountain is a large part of where it gets its name from. Cuyamaca was a word used by the Kumeyaay tribe that means place behind the clouds. And once you reach the top, you will definitely see what they mean. On a clear day, you can see the ocean, Coronado Islands, Anza Borrego, and even Tabletop Mountain in Mexico. There are a bunch of different trails inside the park, but there are two main routes that will take you to the top of Cuyamaca Peak. The first route is the Out and Back Trail. It is quite a bit shorter at only 5.5 miles long. That entire hike takes place on a paved road. The only downside is it is a pretty steep and relentless climb, and it's a little bit less scenic. After making the left at this fork, we continued along our preferred route, which is the Azalea Glen Trail. Taking this route will give you the opportunity to walk through some beautiful scenery before you get to the climb. And even once you get to the climb, this trail has several spots that flatten out to give you a little bit of a break. We definitely lucked out when we hiked this trail because we visited at the perfect time to get some fall colors in the trees. At right around 9/10 of a mile in, another trail will join up with the Azalea Glen Trail, and you should find yourself at this neat little curved bridge. Shortly after that, you'll come to yet another fork, and you need to stay left here. Everything is pretty well marked here, but we do highly recommend using an app like AllTrails to make sure that you're going the right way. And also, certain parts of this hike are on mixed use trails, which means you could encounter horses or mountain bikes. As you can see by the sign right here, you shouldn't see any mountain bikes after this point, but you might still see some horses. We didn't see either while we were there, but we did see quite a bit of horse poop on the trail, so they have been there recently. If you encounter horses while hiking, don't forget that they have right of way on the trail. The fall colors were getting more and more intense the further that we hiked in, and we were really enjoying them. But that's when we realized that we needed to keep our eyes peeled for something else because we spotted some fresh mountain lion tracks. They are known to be common in this area, so be sure to be careful and hike in groups when possible. The big kitty wasn't the only wildlife in the area, and a little further down the trail we saw a big flock of turkeys and some deer. As beautiful as the area is here, you can definitely tell that it has faced its share of challenges. A lot of the trees were burned in what I believe was the Cedar Fire back in 2003. We can only imagine how lush this area would look if all of these trees were still full of leaves. Hopefully one day in the not too distant future, things will bounce back to what they were like before the fires. This part of the hike was incredibly peaceful. It was hard to see because it was almost completely covered by vegetation, but on the right side of the trail there was a babbling brook with some small waterfalls. I was really bummed that I didn't bring my recorder because there were some awesome sounds that I would have loved to have recorded for our Relaxing Vibes channel. If you haven't checked that channel out yet, click in the upper corner right now to see one of our most recent videos. This trail was really clean and free of trash, and all we found the entire day was that one glove, and I picked it up. If you decide to do this hike and see any trash, do us a huge solid and pick it up too. Together we can keep this area looking pristine. This is the part of the trail where that moderate rating is going to start to kick in. The trail is suddenly going to become quite a bit rockier, and you're going to really start to gain some elevation. On the positive side, the higher that you climb, the better your view off to the north gets. This is just the warm-up before the big climb, but you can still expect to gain around 460 feet. As we reached the top, we saw this marker, and we were expecting to have to turn left. Although that will take you there as well, the route that we were taking today required us to turn right at this junction. You will be getting a nice bit of a breather here because the road is wide, flat, and actually a little bit downhill. You're going to be staying on this road for about half a mile, but you really need to keep your eyes peeled for the next fork. It's tucked away on the left side of the road, and if you're not paying attention for it or its small marker, you could miss it. At this point, I hate to say it, but break time is over and you have 2.3 miles of solid climbing ahead of you. This part of the hike is known as the Conejos Trail. It's rocky, steep, and there are several fallen trees that they've had to cut notches in so you can get through. As steep as it was, we were definitely appreciating the switchbacks. This kept the incline much more manageable and meant that we didn't have to claw our way straight up the side of the mountain. With every switchback comes better views, which is a good thing because you're probably going to need to take some breaks on your way up the hill. Even though you're not at extremely high altitudes, you are going from 4,800 feet to 6,700 feet. So that's my excuse why I was a little bit out of breath on these hills. As we climbed even higher, I noticed that the ground was just a little bit crunchy. At first I thought it was just some weird soil, but as we dug into the dirt, we noticed that there were these really beautiful ice crystals forming underground. We've never seen anything quite like it, and we'd love to know what makes them form this way. So if you know anything about what causes these crystals, let us know in the comments below. Shortly after passing the ice crystals, the incline started to level out, and at right around the 4-mile mark we came to this beautiful meadow. This is where we saw something else that we were curious about, but this one was actually man-made. We saw a lot of logs and branches stacked up into almost a teepee shape. We aren't exactly sure if this is just the forest department's way of cleaning up the forest or what they plan on doing with this stack eventually. 4.3 miles into the hike, you will be hopping on a paved road. And not only that, but you'll get your first glimpses of the antennas up on the peak of the mountain, which is your destination. We also spotted some ice, so you know I had to break it. But this ice was thick, so there was no chance that I was breaking it over my head. This is the same paved road that you'd be on if you did the 5.5 mile trail, but you're only going to be doing the last half mile of it. But let me tell you, it is one steep half of a mile.
This is why we do a lot of voiceover in the videos, because otherwise you're going to have to listen to me breathe a lot.
Yes.
To be honest, doing a hill like this all the way from the bottom just does not seem fun. We will, however, be taking the road on the way back because it is shorter and we were hoping to make it back to Julian for some hot apple pie. This peak definitely makes you work for it, and it gets even a little bit steeper at the very top. But I'm happy to say that the view from the peak is absolutely worth it. There was a tiny bit of haze in the air this day, but it did not stop us from seeing all the way to Mexico. If you brought your lunch, this is a fantastic place to enjoy it. There are several rocks that you can sit on and it feels like you have a view of the entire world. V also found this crazy rock and thought that it would be really fun to climb up. It looks a lot sketchier than it is, but if you decide to climb up it, please be careful. Being up there does give you one heck of a view, and I couldn't help but get up there myself. We could have stayed up there and enjoyed the view for hours, but the cold winds were starting to pick up and the pie shops closed in just a couple hours, so we needed to head back. We were doing our best to save our appetites, but we figured, a couple cookies couldn't hurt. So as I mentioned before, we will be taking this paved road pretty much all the way back to the parking lot. While you're watching this, picture trying to walk up this entire road, and you'll see why we decided to go with the 7-mile route. You're definitely going to want to try to take your time as much as you can on the way down. The road is very steep, and if you go stomping your way down, it's going to really take a toll on your knees. That being said though, it probably is a little bit easier than trying to do this as an out and back and go down the rocky hills again. There is one tiny section on the way back that is uphill, and this is it right here. It's absolutely nothing compared to what you've already climbed, but it does prevent me from saying that the entire way back is downhill. You're also going to be passing by several connecting trails, but you want to stay on the paved road for a little bit longer. We actually messed up on the end of this trail and you'll see it in just a little bit. We were nearing the bottom of the hill and we were starting to get a small second wind from those cookies. If you're hoping to bring your four-legged friend along with you on your hike up Cuyamaca Peak, please note that they are only allowed on the paved road. And also, be sure to bring plenty of water for them because they're going to need it after climbing this mountain. It was pretty wild to see all of the devastation that the fire caused on this side of the park. As we hiked through all of the burnt trees, V looked down and spotted a potato bug, which neither of us have ever seen on a hike before. Supposedly, if they bite you, it's painful but not poisonous. Finally, civilization appeared as we neared the edge of the campground. Little did we know we should have turned in here to get back to the trailhead, but we were a little bit distracted, so we just kept on the main road. Because we missed our turn, we ended up hiking another 3/10 of a mile down the road, where we were greeted by this gate. This led us to a maintenance yard. It wasn't the prettiest way to end the hike, but we were short on time and pie was on the line. Luckily, just on the other side of the yard, it joined right back up with the trail that we should have been on. Overall, this is a fantastic hike and one heck of a workout. Which hike of the 6-pack of peaks would you like to see us take on next? Let us know in the comments below. And just in case you're wondering, we went with a hot slice of boysenberry and apple pie with a scoop of ice cream, and it was delicious. Well, that's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe because we have some pretty awesome videos coming up. Be sure to check out our Relaxing Vibes channel linked in the comments. And for all the information about Cuyamaca Peak, or if you just want to talk about pie, head on over to 𝐷ADventureLife.com.